Let's go to David Montgomery. I think that I almost wish that the reports recently haven't surfaced, because I probably would have talked about Montgomery regardless. But, in situations like this, I think a lot of assumptions get made about running backs and their potential workload when you see changes with the front office and with coaching staff, etc. I think a lot of people just assume that David Montgomery is going to see the role that he's seen over the last couple of years, which has been an awesome role. Let's at least throw that out there. I mean, last year, only Najee Harris had a higher snap rate per game. 2 years ago, David Montgomery was first in the NFL in snap rate per game. So he's on the field all the time. It's an unbelievable role. But we're looking at a running back who's just seen a lot of work by default from being on the field. But that was with a completely different coaching staff, completely new team, or a completely different team. And now there's already reports of them splitting that backfield up a little bit more. And he's getting the special team reps, which I thought was hilarious, that they're throwing him on special teams, which, I mean, like, I don't think it's nothing. The fact that that's happening, I don't think that you just like take that to the bank, but I do think it's a little bit, like, it's at least something. There's something there that they're not looking at David Montgomery as this like prized possession in their backfield. And I don't think that they should, if we're being honest. If you look at what happened last season with Khalil Herbert, Khalil Herbert was better than Montgomery at gaining 20 plus yards per rush. He was better than Montgomery in success rate last year. He was the only running back, and he was a rookie, by the way. He was the only running back to rush for 100 yards against Tampa Bay last year. And only Dalvin Cook had done that over the last 2 years. My prospect model with Khalil Herbert, my prospect model has a metric called draft capital delta, which essentially looks at a player's prospect score and it compares it to where he was drafted. And it can show if a player was generally overdrafted or underdrafted. Last year, he had the third best draft capital delta in the running back class. I think Khalil Herbert is very good, is basically what I'm saying. I think he's a really strong running back. And so if you get this new coaching staff and they're going to look at things with a more objective lens, then they can sit there and say, oh, Khalil Herbert might not be any worse. If not, he might be better than David Montgomery. And so if that's the case, it's not like they're the ones who drafted Montgomery. It's not like they have any ties to Montgomery. So I don't think that we should just assume that David Montgomery is going to be first or second in the NFL in snap rate this year. It just doesn't make any logical sense to me. So to me, Montgomery is just like the most standard dead zone running back imaginable. I think Khalil Herbert is a nice little dart late right now. Because I do think he's just a very strong running back from a talent perspective. And the gap between these two guys probably shouldn't be as great as it is.
Yeah, I mean, and Tristan Ebner is a really good receiving back too that's gotten some buzz in camp. Definitely, we saw when David Montgomery was sharing that role with Tariq Cohen a couple years ago. He wasn't that guy that we just counted on that volume. I'm with you lockstep on that one. Just he's profiles just as a classic dead zone running back, and that's just easy to avoid. Like guys like him and kind of Josh Jacobs. And we're seeing Josh Jacobs in a similar vein, is in a similar situation. You get a new coaching staff. Now, he was a first-round pick, so they had declined his fifth-year option, whereas Dave Montgomery wasn't even available. But if Dave Montgomery had a fifth-year option available, do we believe they would have picked it up?
No.
I mean, probably pretty questionable. And we've seen that kind of bear out in some of the how we've seen the handling of those two players in camps. I feel like those two players are very much on a similar trajectory.